5:36, so whenever you're ready, Jen, just let me know. We'll go.
You there, sir?
Yes,
Mr. Corbin?
Yes, ma'am, sorry.
Alrighty. Go ahead, you're on.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Jen, will you take roll call, please?
Commissioner Thurl.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Corbin.
Here.
Commissioner Waldner.
Here.
Mayor Denner.
Here. We have the agenda in front of us.
Make a motion, we approve the agenda.
Second.
Sorry.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Jump down into appearance and acknowledgement. Number 1, acknowledge letter from South Dakota State Historical Society and construction building permit application materials -705 North Egan Avenue. Chad, you want to address this one, please?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Your Honor. First included in the agenda packet is a letter dated August 30th to the City of Madison to the attention of Ryan Haig from the State Historic Preservation Office. A building permit application form completed by Dustin Hendrickson, I believe. Form A. There's a Form B, a simple plot plan, which is supplemented by a site plan, a detailed site plan that I'll talk about later. There is 2 pages for a floodplain development permit application filled out by Mr. Hendrickson, a typical wall section, a site plan, 2 pages of a site plan stamped by Aaron Norman as a land surveyor and licensed engineer, a plan view sheet of the proposed structure, and then floor plans for foundation, first, second floor, and then attic. There is also a second site plan. I would describe this as being actually superseded by the one I had mentioned previously. This one I refer to as has an aerial photo on it, and then there's a sort of a landscape view plan or a profile view of the structure here as well. So with that, the item on the agenda is to acknowledge this letter from the State Historic Preservation Office and the building permit application materials provided. As you may recall, this was before you some time back, for the same, for demolition of the existing structures. SHPO, because this is in the historic district, SHPO was consulted at that time, and there was a process that we went through at that time to take the appropriate steps required by law. And that demo permit for this structure at this address was approved, and then the developer had proceeded to take steps to prepare some plans and specifications for a new building application, which is what you see before you. Also, since that time, there was a replat brought forth, splitting the parcel into 2. I'll just describe it that way for now, and I can answer questions later. To talk a bit about the letter that was received from SHPO, it appears that from a plain reading of the letter that they have indicated that this is the new permit application is acceptable to them. They've indicated, perhaps not in the letter, in some conversations we've had with them, because we've coordinated with them and our attorney's office quite a bit on this, that there was an initial proposal from the developer, and SHPO had some comments, and I understand there was some changes made to accommodate some of SHPO's questions. And then the floodplain, it appears that the floodplain requirements have been met. and with what's been submitted so far, as has the building code. A couple things in particular related to the structures themselves related to zoning type questions. There are two separate parcels and two separate building permit applications. And this is this application, the one we're talking about right now, is for a two-family dwelling. That's listed as a principal permitted use in this R60 zone. So it's a two-family dwelling. Within each side of the dwelling, there includes 6 separate, what appears to be bedrooms in that, presumably to be occupied by that, but by individuals. Our ordinance talks about, well, we don't know if all bedrooms will be used by 6 separate individuals or not at this time. That's what all would be allowed for our zoning ordinance. Anything more than that would be a violation of the zoning ordinance. So that would be 12 potential unrelated individuals in that structure. As far as parking goes, it's required in our ordinance to have 2 parking stalls per dwelling unit. And as I had mentioned, this is a 2-family dwelling unit, so that would be a requirement of 4 parking stalls. The applicant has provided 8. I had previously indicated there was 9, but there's actually 8 provided. And then there is a shared access between the neighboring property via mutual access easement that was outlined in the replat process. So I coordinated with David and the mayor and others to ask that this be put on the agenda. I don't believe there's any requirement for it to be on the agenda for any purpose, quite honestly, required by SHPO or law. However, due to some of the nature of some of the previous discussions with the demo permit, we wanted to, I'll just describe it this way, we wanted to err on the side of having more information out there than less. And so that's why this acknowledgement is on the agenda. We did contact some of the landowners as just a courtesy outreach. Again, there's no notice requirement and nothing that we can tell by law to do that. But regardless, we tried to reach out to some of those parties that spoke at some of the previous hearings, just to let them know this item was on the agenda so they could see both the SHPO letter and what the proposal is from the developer. So with that, I can stand by to answer questions as necessary.
Dustin, did you have anything that you wanted to comment on?
My name's Dustin Hendrickson. Do I got to talk into this or no?
It's fine, just like-
Okay. I just wanted to say that we basically worked directly with SHPO. They made us redesign the entire house. So I feel they clearly have all the landowners' best. They're trying to protect the landowners that are around here, and they seem to be kind of excited about the project. The buildings are both only 50 by 50, so they're not very big buildings. The amount of land that's going to be used for dwellings is actually smaller than what's there once we take out all those additions and garages and all that space. So we're basically just cleaning that up, making 2 unified structures there that would fit really well with the neighborhood and would be a good fit for the university. And someone mentioned that we would put 2 people in each room. These are just individual bedrooms. It'd be pretty tough to put 2 people per room. That's not our plan. We were planning on 1 person per room. Plus you have the unrelated, and the unrelated thing is really hard. It's not easy to get. People can try to claim that they're related and be more in there, but it doesn't work for us in Brookings. We just follow the ordinance there, and it's a lot easier than trying to put too many people in the unit. So we were only going to have 6 people per unit, and previously dwelling this place, it was roughly 20 people that were there. So it's barely even an increase in population. And then the parking, instead of it being kind of in the front and in the sides and in the back, it'll all be in the back. And then we're not opposed to looking at putting in additional parking beyond that, but I know it's in the floodway, so then the city has to kind of look into what the available options are with putting parking back there. But we're not opposed to it at all. And if anyone has any suggestions, we'd love to, work with them. But these buildings are they're not that big, and we can't really make them smaller. It's not feasible if we make them any smaller. These are about half the size of what our original plan was as well, so we cut it way down. And it's kind of in flux, every time a new rule comes, it kind of changes a little bit, so it has been constantly changing, so. And I can answer any questions. I'd be glad. We're always open to take emails on any type of questions.
I'd just like to say I appreciate you being patient with us and going through all the hoops and getting something there.
I mean, I'm familiar with this process. We've done it multiple times in Brookings. So. And all the time so far, people like what we put in versus what was there. So.
Did anybody else want to speak?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I just have a couple questions.
Yep, come on up.
I'm Lois Niedert. I live at 622 North Egan, so across the street. I just had a couple questions, and I don't know how the process is, but does SHPO then monitor to make sure that the plans don't get changed, that they've been approved now at a certain roof pitch and all those kind of thing? I'm just asking, does somebody monitor that? Because I know a plan is submitted, but does that have to be the plan that stays?
I don't believe SHPO would monitor it, but however, we're aware of, we have a plan, obviously, and
Okay.
we'll, if there's a change, what would be approved would be the plan that's provided. If there's a change, we would look at what the change is, and if it is a deviation from what's shown, we would either have to re-notify SHPO,
Okay.
go through the process, but that's definitely on our radar.
Okay.
And I don't think, yeah, there is changes, particularly anything significant. We would be letting SHPO know and having some conversations with the developer about it.
Okay. And then lastly, I know parking has been an issue that all the neighbors have kind of been talking about. So would there be a way to investigate if parking could be added on back further? I know it's the flood way versus the flood plain. And is there a way to investigate if additional parking could be in a flood way, either there or I know there's plenty of land close to campus on 7th Street, if there's any way that parking could be added there somehow to have an option be for more parking just for students in general.
Sure. Yeah, and Mr. Hendrickson mentioned that we've talked about it quite a bit into our office. If it encroaches into that floodway, then some different requirements or things are required. However, we do believe it is possible to do that. The developer would need to initiate that, and they would have to go through a couple things. Generally speaking, it would be a no-rise certificate. It would be some analysis required by FEMA because we participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. But I do believe there could be additional parking added. Yes.
That would buy a lot of goodwill from your neighbors if you were
I'm not
willing
even
to do that.
opposed to allowing public parking back there because
I mean, that's just, it's a huge issue. Obviously, you've heard it from lots of places.
It's going to continue to be an issue around
Right.
campus. It's going to get
So,
worse. I
it would
understand that.
buy a lot of goodwill from your neighbors to investigate that and
Yeah.
try to see what can be done. And then side note, then since those lots are there on 7th Street, I would encourage the commission to look into what can be done for potential parking or an agreement with Dakota State to use some of that land sitting there for parking also, because it's also a hazard on all the streets around campus for fire and police and everybody on those blocks. It's going to get worse. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Chad, can you look into that? Have your office actually, I know you and I have talked about that, probably many times. Now take it to the next level and actually look into it and find out what it would take, and make sure and work with them, because if they can extend that back there,
Yeah.
that would be nice, so.
On a couple different levels, excuse me.
But
We
let's,
look,
if I can, just
Yes.
pause you for a second, because I don't want to get into a parking discussion here, because we got, this is on the agenda, but.
we'll look at it. We have looked at it quite a bit and talked about, we will continue to look at
Okay, specifically for this, go ahead and look into it for them. And then let me know.
I think that's something the commission would like to know as a whole.
Yeah, yeah. Agreed.
Because it is a concern for them. And that is become an extremely congested area. And I understand completely living in that area. But it's something we should look at it if it would be a benefit to both this development as well as possible other ways of housing. That would be great. So.
Do we have a motion to acknowledge?
In acknowledging this, are we signing on to this by acknowledging it? Because it's basically, as I understand it, is the Shipples that met all the requirements. We're saying that there's no further building permit needed, that they can proceed.
Well, a building permit needs to be issued, but that's administrative in nature. The city has no lawful authority when a developer meets all of the requirements of state law and city ordinance to deny a permit.
Right.
So you aren't agreeing to a permit, you're not authorizing a permit tonight, nor are you denying one. You are acknowledging that you have received the recommendations from the Historical Preservation Office, and after that, the zoning office will conduct its administrative functions.
Thank you.
Then I would make a motion to acknowledge the letter from the state of from the South Dakota State Historical Society and Construction Building Permit Application Materials for 705 North Egan Avenue.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further comment, discussion? Not all in favor? Oh, we will do a roll call vote. Sorry.
Corbin, yeah, thank you. Corbin, you there? Okay. Commissioner Corbin, item number 1.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Walter?
Aye.
Commissioner Thill?
Aye.
And Mayor Denner.
Aye. Moving in number 2, acknowledge letter from South Dakota State Historical Society and Construction Building Permit Application Materials, 709 North Egan Avenue. Chad?
This is virtually identical to the first item we had talked about. There's a separate building permit application, a separate parcel, a separate floodplain development permit, separate site plan. There are separate floor plans, although they match. And so I would submit the same comments that I provided for item number 1.
I'll make a motion, we acknowledge the letter from South Dakota State Historical Society and Construction Building Permit Application Materials, 709 North Egan Avenue.
Second.
We'll let Jen fight over that, okay?
Give it to
We got a motion and a second. Any further comments, discussion? If not, we'll take roll call vote on this one, please.
Commissioner Thill?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner?
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
And Mayor Danner.
Aye. Does anyone wish to remove any item from the consent calendar?
I would like to remove the board appointment from the consent calendar.
So that is, number 2 is removed. Are there any other items to be removed?
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent calendar with that removal.
Second. I got a motion and a second. Any further comment or discussion? Not. Roll call vote. Jen?
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Waldner?
Aye.
Corbin?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Danner.
Aye. Now we'll go into number 2. Any discussion on number 2? Being it was removed.
I don't have any discussion at this time, but I'd like to speak about it when I'm back in town with the mayor. So I'll make a motion to table board appointment Jim Casanova, sidewalk committee.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion to table item number 2 from the consent calendar. Any further comment, discussion? Not. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Corbin?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Waldner?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
And Danner.
Aye. See nothing under unfinished business. We'll move into the new business. Resolution number 2019-20. Direct and set date of public hearing on assessed rolls for sidewalk improvement 2018. Chad.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I can talk about, yes, we'll talk about it together.
Okay.
Maybe since the assessment roll is included in the agenda packet and that predates the item today, I can talk about that. And then let Jen talk about some of this, if that's all right.
Okay.
So the assessment roll you see in the agenda packet, I filed with Ms. Eimers on September 4th. And basically this is for the new sidewalks that were constructed in 2018. There was, in this case, one landowner that had opted to have the city accomplish the work. The remainder of the landowners accomplished that work on their own, and or the city had, I'll just leave it at that. They accomplished it, the city accomplished it, and then this is going to be rolled into an assessment against the property. We've obviously dialogued with these landowners the entire time about this process, and Mr. Bloom and his wife are well aware of where we're at in the process. This is a typical process, I guess, I'm not going to keep using that word, but outlined in the state statutes for filing the assessment roll, and then there's subsequent steps also in the state statute that Ms. Eimers has outlined in her resolution. Perhaps I'll just stand by with my part for now and be prepared to answer questions if there are any.
And as Chad stated, that said resolution was, or said assessment roll was filed in my office on the 4th day of September. One property to the amount of $4,125.06. An assessment would be divided into 5 equal annual installments and would bear an annual interest rate of 8.25%. That 8.25% is calculated policy in place, and then we take the prime rate and we add 3%. So the prime rate as of the date of filing was 5.25. Add the 3%, that gives you the annual interest of 8.25%. We will publish said notice in the paper on Thursday. 20 days must pass before we can have the hearing. Therefore, your resolution states a hearing date of September 30th at 5:30 p.m. Any questions for me?
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to set bid date of September 30th at 5:30 p.m. for public hearing assessment roll for sidewalks 2018.
Adopt the resolution, is
Or-
what the motion
yeah.
should be.
Yeah, adopt a resolution.
What was the date on that?
September 30th.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further comment or discussion? Not, Jen, will you do a roll call vote on this, please?
Commissioner Corbin?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
And Mayor Denner.
Aye. We'll move down into number 2, resolution 2019-21, direct and set date of hearing, public hearing on assessed rolls for sidewalk repair improvements 2018. Jen?
Uh, Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I can say a few words, and this is for the repairs. These repairs were inspected in 2017, and the work was accomplished by our contractor in 2018. Some, typically, I apologize, I don't remember the exact number of the defects that were originally listed, but typically they're upwards of 50. So as you can see, there's 16 here, folks who either didn't get around to doing the repair or specifically asked that we do that. And so similar process to what I had described for the new sidewalk resolution you just considered. I filed this assessment roll with Ms. Eimers on September 4th.
Therefore, all of the content of this resolution is pretty much the same, with the exception of number 1, some of the square footage there, and as Chad stated, there was 16 properties here, total amount of $12,369.36. Same 5 years, same 8.25% interest, along with the same hearing date of September 30th.
I'll make a motion, we accept resolution number 2019-21, direct and set date of public hearing for September 30th on assessment roll for sidewalk repair improvement 2018.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in, any more comment or discussion? If not, Jen, will you take the
Commissioner
roll
Waldner?
call?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Corbin?
Aye.
Denner?
Aye.
Thank you.
Public comment? Is there any public?
There's no public comment.
Okay, any announcements? Seeing no announcement, do I have a motion to move into exec session, SDCL 1-25-23?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to move into executive session. Any further comment, discussion? Not. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. We'll move into exec session.